So Mr. Soap and Clay absolutely hates tomatoes. Like he hates the texture. He will not eat a raw tomato at all. He'll do them cooked. It's fine. It's a different thing for him. But a raw tomato, you cannot make him do it. He will not. This tomato, though, however, when I went to the farmer's market to pick up all the produce for this series, he was completely like interested and intrigued with this tomato to the point where he actually wanted to try it. And I wouldn't let him because I had to use it for soap. And so that's what we're doing today is disappointing Mr. Soap and Clay and also making tomato juice soap straight from, fresh. And you get it. That's what we've been doing. We're working with the juicer. It's going to be a good time. I'll tell you more about the tomato soap we're making, why we're making it in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I'm Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff.
Just like the street lights lit.
How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things. And today, as I said, we are doing a tomato soap. Now, we've done a tomato soap before on the channel, and I've worked with just a tomato puree. And we did that, and it was fun. It was really more about color than anything else, but we did have some interesting lather tests within all of it. The shininess of the bar, the hardness of a bar definitely led to a shorter cure time, a lot of things, but it was kind of like a one and done thing. And since I thought we were doing all these fresh fruits and veg throughout the, months of the summer for the deep dives, we could really talk more about tomatoes and how to incorporate it, what you can get from it. Can it be infused into an oil? Are there other methods of extraction? What are the benefits topically? Can we use it in a cosmetic? All of those things will occur. For now, we're going to be talking about soap and tomatoes in soap. So what it's going to do for the bar's performance and what is going to survive saponification that you can find within the tomatoes. And I think that's a pretty important thing to focus on because while we are doing all this fun stuff within our lye solutions or within our traced batters or what have you, we really do need to pay attention to what survives saponification and what does not. So today we're going to be making a tomato soap using a freshly juiced tomato in place of the water within the lye solution, and we're going to do all of it. It's another cradle to grave. So we're going to do the extraction, we're going to do the make, we're going to do the cut, we're going to do the tests, and we're also going to do not only a lather test, but a pH test, and we're going to have that compared to a 34% and a 50% superfatted soap to see if there's actually a difference when we use the old universal indicator. So let's get to the video because that's kind of a lot to cover and, go from there. So first up, we are going to do weird stuff, and it's juice a tomato. We don't really need to do this. We could just mash it up. But I am obsessed with my juicer all of the time, and now I have an excuse and a reason to show you guys all of my weird obsessions. And so here you go. The type of tomato, I have no idea. One of you guys are going to tell me. I'm going to go with beefsteak. I have no idea if that's right. Does that matter? Kind of. It does matter based on the types of tomatoes that you consume. There will be different amino acids within it, as well as, how ripe it is, et cetera, and so forth. Will tell you kind of how much, how acidic it is. But for our purposes, because tomatoes don't really have a whole lot going for them outside of water, it's not super going to matter what type of tomatoes that we are using for these purposes. Now, for all of this, we will be doing what we have done within the spinach and the rhubarb, and we will be substituting 100% of the juiced tomato or the tomato juice for the water in the lye solution. I did not mention it yesterday, but we are using the exact same recipe that we used for the spinach soaps, with the exception of there are no infusions of the rhubarb or the tomato within any percentage of the oils. So we did that differently with the spinach. The reason for that is because the spinach was going to be a really good colorant within the oils, and I did not believe that this was going to really yield a super good color for either one of them. But so I did not infuse them into the oils. That and there wasn't a whole lot of waste material that didn't still contain a really high amount of liquid when it comes to the tomatoes. As you can see, there's a lot. It's mostly juice. What we are working with tomatoes, we're working with primarily water. So realistically, you see that pulp and see how juicy it is. I didn't really want to put that into my oils. I didn't think that it was going to yield much of anything. Now, dried, it could be a different story entirely. I've never seen dried tomatoes in any applications that I would have come across them, i.e., making soap, but I'm sure somebody's done it, you know? And for the juice itself, we are talking about a few main components. So basically, it's going to be water, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and then your vitamins and minerals. Now, what percentages in total? Tomatoes are about mostly water. They're like 94 to 95% water. And so we know what happens when that comes in contact with sodium hydroxide. We're going to see it, water. And the rest is 3 to 4% carbohydrates, which are going to be your sugars, so your glucose and your fructose. So we should expect a slightly bigger bubble payoff, maybe, And then also proteins, about 1%. Fats, less than 1%. That is the lye solution. It is weird. My camera died, so that's all you get. Okay, so on to the make, and this is the lye solution that has been cooled down. It is a very, very dark, beautiful red that looks almost like just straight tomato juice. And so I wanted to show you just how dark that color is. Very beautiful lye solution for sure. Using the same amount of lye and water that we've been using for all of the batches. And so 2.4 times water to the lye. And we'll do a test on the actual pH of the lye solution. And as you can see, super, super alkaline. It's exactly what we want it to be. So no change within the solution itself because of the acidity of tomatoes. Now here's why. Tomatoes are not super acidic. So we are dealing with tomatoes, two different types of acids, really, citric acid and malic. And we do know what citric acid does within soaps. It can consume a portion of the lye. And depending on how much citric acid you're using and how precise you want to be with your superfat, you should probably adjust your lye to make up for the consumption with the citric acid. So they are working to neutralize each other. Now, the malic acid, it's sort of the same thing, but on a much weaker scale. Malic acid is a very, very weak acid. And so in reality, it's not going to do much of anything as far as the lye solution itself. Is it going to consume some of the sodium hydroxide? Yeah, but such a small amount. And so it's such a negligible amount, especially when you're considering using the tomatoes and how little citric acid actually exists, or acids generally actually exist, excuse me. It's not anything that you should worry about as far as adjusting your lye because of the inclusion. So to that, malic acid, it's also not a great chelator. It doesn't bind really well with minerals and whatnot. So what it's going to be adding to the soap in terms of hard water, a whole lot of nothing. I am showing you a potential trace. It took a long time, which was the, little clock wipe thing that I did for everything. It took a really long time to get to trace with all of this. Probably because everything was very, very cool is likely what was going on with all of that. I don't remember taking a super long time when we did our first tomato soap, but maybe it did. Some of the sugars could potentially impact how long it takes to get to trace or emulsion. But let's talk about the sugars. Again, carbohydrates about 3 to 4%. What do we know will happen with carbohydrates when it reacts with sodium hydroxide? Well, we know that it's going to create essentially an alcohol, and so it's going to, for our purposes, increase the bubble of the soap. 3 to 4% within total tomatoes. Is it going to make much of a difference? Probably not. Proteins, again, around 1%, less than 1% of the total composition of tomato juice. What are the proteins going to be? It's going to be your amino acids, and those can definitely be broken down by a sodium hydroxide reaction into the individual amino acid components. And so for tomatoes, we're talking about lysine, leucine, arginine, I think. And so, yes, those actually will survive saponification, and the remaining, like the peptides within proteins, will then, like, they don't survive. They are saponified. So that's the breakdown. And so, will that matter in your end result? Not much, because again, this is less than 1% of the weird stuff that you put into your solution. And then that part gets broken down into individual amino acids. Could that make or break a cosmetic, a leave on? Sure, 1% of something can be great. You know what I mean? For your actives within a leave on, within a cosmetic. And so potentially. So what else? Fats. There's not any fats to really talk about within all of this. And the remaining vitamins and minerals, that's less than 1% as well. So the minerals and the vitamins that could exist, we're talking about, gosh, what would it be? I don't actually know. I guess vitamin C, obviously, vitamin K, vitamin A would certainly be in it. And so then we would have folates and magnesium, probably potassium, but such small amounts, that's not going to make or break our soap either. So not a lot of benefit for any of it. Okay, so on to the cut and the tests, and as you can see, it went super orange. Like I put that in the orange portion of my counter, so you can see it's orange. It's not nearly as red as I wanted it to be, which is a bummer, and I'm also confused by this, just like I was with rhubarb yesterday. And now that I think about it, I should probably just go back and review my old stuff before coming on and talking to you guys about stuff. But in the tomato that I used, that I made, when we were just doing weird stuff and I made a tomato soap, I feel like I did the tomato puree, like a higher concentrated, and then I also included rhubarb. And so maybe that's what led to the super dark. But this ultimately went orange, and it did not change in color during the cure at all, which you will see within the lather tests. And so for coloring, yeah, if you want a gorgeous orange, for sure. If I'd made it look like a tomato, that would have sucked because it would have been orange. And so that's kind of a bummer. So is it good for a natural colorant? Not really. Is what are we looking at? What are the benefits realistically of putting tomatoes into soap? I would say mostly just label appeal, which is a whole thing. You can totally do that. If you're working a farmer's market or something and you want to use all the fresh produce that you would find at a farmer's market, a tomato soap is kind of a slam dunk. That's beautiful. Just know that you're probably going to need to put extra colorants in it to ensure that it is red. And the overall benefit of it is it's tomatoes. You're going to have a slightly better, lather boost. And I suppose you could talk about vitamin C and what not existing, but as far as what components of vitamin C actually exist, that will be talked about in pretty good depth within the carrot section, because I do want to talk more about all of the different vitamins and minerals and what occurs to them during saponification. Because we're always asking these questions, right? What survives saponification? And my kind of easy answer is anything that's not impacted. So, like anything that's not the fatty acids. And that's mostly true because we're dealing with such trace amounts of your vitamins and your minerals and everything within soap making that it doesn't super matter. But a lot of these actual vitamins are fat soluble, and so they can be broken down. So we will talk more about that within the carrot series next week for sure. But for our intents and purposes, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know that it's something that I would ever, call out and be like, yeah, tomatoes are rich in all these vitamins, so that means they're in our soap. A, that's not really things that we can say. Two, it's not really accurate. It's less than 1% of the total composition. So for a leave-on, again, when we're dealing with all of the good benefits of tomatoes, yeah, you can super get some awesomeness from here. But ultimately, I think as what we're dealing with here for soap, it's going to be a better lather payoff. That would be the biggest thing because of the sugars. I don't see any real tannins or flavonoids in anything that would make for a shinier bar or a bar that is, I don't know, a harder, longer life within the shower. So I don't know. I'm going to go with it's just basically label appeal. Also, I think what I put on top of that was sage because I scented it with the sage from Sierra Candles because I didn't have any more of that tomato scent from Nature's Garden that I love so very much. And so I didn't use that, but that one is delightful. It's like a tomato coriander. It's such a green, clean, beautiful scent. Use that for sure. This sage leaf, it's also delightful. It works and serves the purpose too. So if you smell this and you know it's a tomato soap, it's labeled tomato soap, then yeah, you can totally get, yeah, that's a tomato. I get that. Now we are going to test the pH of this, and I would expect this to be actually lighter, well, closer to, so more alkaline, so darker in color to the than we saw for the rhubarb, because again, less acidity. We have a very weak acidic structure within all of this for the malic acid and the citric acid within tomatoes than we did with the rhubarb. Now, the soaps themselves, they're coming in probably 9. I would say it's solid 9 with the pH strip itself. And then using the universal indicator, remember the darker the blue, the more alkaline it is. So it'll go green if it's getting towards neutral, you know, so a light green, all phases of green, and a lighter blue to very, very dark violet is going towards your alkaline. So really it's another version of your pH strips and a little indicator that you see with that. So putting 4 drops of your universal indicator, which is a mix of all the things. It's got all the things in it to determine what we have going on with all of it. 3 to 4 drops within a 5 milliliter solution will give you your what you're looking for here. And yeah, it's definitely darker than the rhubarb one that we saw yesterday. So it is slightly more alkaline than what we were working with yesterday, but still alkaline. So that's important, you know, but it's not. I guess one of the things is that I wanted to do with all of this is really just talk about the acidity or the notion that you can't put acidic things into your lye solution or your soap will fail. It's not the case. And so I guess we're going to go with a pretty hardcore one for tomorrow's soap and show you like super acidity within a soap just to show that that's not really the case. The worst that can happen with soap that has, you know, a juice that is acidic in place of a water solution or juices within the batter that are again acidic. See, look how orange it is. My Gatorade bottle there. But for the worst that can happen is you're going to end up with a more heavily superfatted bar. Now, if you're already dealing with a really heavily superfatted bar, then that's a problem and you might want to consider adjusting it. But if you're just going with stock standard ranges of like 3 to 7% for your superfat, yeah, it's not going to make a difference. You know, you're just going to have more oils that ultimately did not get saponified. And that can be a good thing as far as moisture properties and whatnot. Can be a bad thing if you have too much of your oils because it can really inhibit that lather. This lather is beautiful. I really do like it. It's a lovely big bubble right there. Immediately it started bubbling. I didn't have to work at it. And it felt great in the hand. Not as slippy as yesterday's bar, which I'm definitely a fan of. And overall, yeah, it's a gorgeous bar of soap as far as the lather goes. So yeah, if you're interested in doing like fresh fruits and veg soaps to have like a whole line that's just dedicated to doing, you know, vegetables and farmer market type stuff, yeah, this is a great idea. Anything else? No. And as you can see, it's still soap and it's delightful. And so nothing bad happens when you put potentially acidic things in it because at the end, your soap, your solution is still alkaline, which is what we need in order to ensure that it cleans us. But for now, there's our tomato soap. I'm super bummed actually that the tomato itself, the color did not survive. And so like it survived to a point, but it's orange as you could tell because I had to show you with the all that. Yep. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer. And so yeah, it's not great for overall just coloring. Weirdly with this method, when I did the puree, that color stayed super dark, but it was a puree of all of the parts of a tomato that were concentrated and then put into the oils, I believe. And so that would be a better method if you're wanting to go tomato for coloring. But as far as a nice orange color, it's pretty cute for sure. If I made it look like a tomato, that would have sucked. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't look like a tomato as far as the coloring goes. It looks more like a carrot. And it actually looks more like a carrot than the carrot soap that I made. So that super sucks. But lather for this one. It's great. Love it. Awesome. Very, very cool. And as far as more information regarding acidic stuff within your lye solution, I hope you guys found that helpful because I super love this stuff. I'm very fascinated by how stuff works and how it all goes together. And when somebody says a boneheaded thing like you can't do X, Y, or Z, I'm like, well, why not? And I immediately go do it. you know? And so this is kind of what this series was, this idea of you can't put something acidic or use something acidic in your lye solution, otherwise all of the lye will be consumed. Hopefully you have a better understanding on why that's not true following these videos, you know? So let me know if you like it, if you're having fun with this. I am having fun. And so I guess ultimately that's kind of all that matters. If you are interested in ultimately watching me have fun, you know, while we do all kinds of science, soapy chemistry tests, you should subscribe. That would be cool. For those of you who are subscribed, hi Sudsers. You're awesome. I love you forever. I am going to go. We have one more soap up for this week with the acidics, and then we're moving on to the carrot series, which I'm very excited about because the carrot series is a completely different beast. And so I'm super looking forward to doing that one too. But for now, we're finishing up with the acidics. So come back tomorrow for the next acidic, you know, whatever. And that would be awesome. I would appreciate that. And it'd make me smile. All those things. I'm going to go. I already said it. I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of acidic infused soapy fun. Bye.